Oh, hello everybody. Welcome to 372 Pages We'll Never Get Back. I am Connor Listoka. This is the book club where we read books that we do not expect to be good. That's less catchy than our original slogan, a podcast about a book club about a book we're probably going to hate. But we don't.
What was run that one by me again?
A book club about a book that probably we do not think is going to be good. Get the T-shirts printed.
Sizzle.
Yeah. Criticizing me and my introduction, as always, is Mike Nelson. Mike, how's it going?
It's the first time I've ever criticized an introduction of anyone, let alone you.
Well, I have some criticism for the last one. I feel like I sort of might have gotten set up on our your iconic duo quiz from last week.
Look, we do this live. We don't share the information first. That would be cheating.
Well, I got a couple people wrote in about, I expressed my just reserved admiration, I would say, that I had no hard feelings against Watson and Crick. And then people wrote in to share with me the dark, pro-eugenics side of either Watson or Crick.
Oh, I did not know that.
Who is now being distanced by many in the field. Someone else wrote in to say that they also just pretty much had a woman who was their third partner who was not never mentioned in any of the accomplishments. So those guys kind of dicks. So I retract.
I did not know that.
Look. The last time I ever thought about those guys was in 1995, and believe it or not, in freshman year biology, they didn't go into the eugenics side of the DNA pioneers. So
that's true. The textbooks I would have been reading would have been shortly after those guys accomplished their stuff at a public school in Illinois. So they would not have had the time to reflect on their character at that point.
Well, this is how you start. You botch the podcast slogan, and then you mention eugenics 4 times in the first 2 minutes, and that's how you.
And I was nearly going to reference, and now that I've said it, I will. It's like, look, people, we didn't start off with a duo of Hitler and Stalin or something like that. We innocently brought up these guys.
Right.
So. Give us a pass on this one.
Yeah, but no, we've got a duo that we're beyond fond of in this one. We're reading Trucking Through Time, starring Chad Hand and Dale Rhea. We learned their last names for the first time on page 100 on this book. So that came as a surprise. We can talk about that now or later.
One of our favorite things is to reference spit takes because they're always funny. I don't care what. And that was nearly, again, one for me. I wished when I read it that I had a huge sip of water. Because it's deep into our reading today, isn't it?
Yes, it's deep.
I mean, it's not at the beginning by any stretch.
No, it's deep into it. And at some point in time, Chad, casually says, hey, you're the man in charge, Dr. Rhea. And then I jotted it down. It was 33 pages layered that they first meet, trappers or something, and they introduce themselves as Chad Hand and Dale Rhea. So you're left to puzzle if Dr. Rhea was a. It's hard to say. If it was a character we're supposed to know, or some pop culture illusion, or maybe just a trucker icon. But no, it turns out that's their last name, and they're just sort of springing that on you in media res.
It is. It's astonishing, and we'll get into the meat of it. But the way that they continue to introduce themselves and their tale, because a lot happens, and by the end of the reading, I couldn't figure out how did they convey that a lot happened, because 97% of it is introducing it and restating what has happened.
Yes.
So it's some sort of it's a Mobius strip that somehow pulls it off. I don't know.
It's like how Star Wars now just continues to tell the tale of the Death Star in every movie. They just are, these guys are sort of just telling their story to everyone they meet as they go. But their story is that they are 2 truckers who had a long haul out to the Bay Area from Atlanta, and they're very concerned about the weather, and at some point get caught in a big storm, and all their equipment goes dead, the CB, the Garmin, and at some point they realize that they see a huge herd of buffalo, discover a dying Native American boy in a cave, and they realize that they probably have gone back in time.
Yes, and if you're listening and you started at episode 2 of this, and I know your questions after Connor gave that little summation. You're saying, how many tarps did they bring with them? Well, that was answered if you read. So catch up, and you'll get a tarp update that'll knock your eyes out.
Oh, the tarps keep paying off. We can get to that when we get to it. But boy, they set the stage well for that one. Yeah. So we ended at chapter 2. We started chapter 3, and we're going to get to all our department's dumb sentence of the week, reader emails, and some diabolical fan fiction. But we'll just cover what started to happen. Where did your chapter 3 start off?
Well, is it Dale who runs back?
Chad, I believe.
Chad.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Chad, what's wrong? Says Dale, because he had seen the 2 trappers named Patch and John describing how they had attempted to sexually assault an Indian woman, mm-hmm. and then beat the snot out of the little boy who came to her aid.
Yes.
So it starts with an intriguing bit of, he says, what's wrong? And Chad says to Dale, you need to sit for this one. I've got a story that even I don't believe. And it's a curious sentence, and it once again reminded me of one of my favorite things of all time, the Winnebago Man. And you'll understand when I play it. This is terrible sound. It's coming off of YouTube, but I think you should be able to hear it. Here's Winnebago Man with a similar sentence construction.
Listen, I've got to give a clue here now. I don't want any more bullshit anytime during the day from anyone. That includes me.
So, yeah, it's very similar.
Sure, yeah. Kleinian almost.
Right.
The self-unreliable narrator. Yeah, he says, I've got a story that even I don't believe. It is in no way believable, understandable, or explainable. So, it checks out right there.
Well, I need to hear this then. I'm about to tell you an utter load of garbage that you should in no way, trust in any capacity at all.
Right. Well, so I guess that's the challenge. Will be find Winnebago Man clips for every episode we do for this book. The gauntlet is thrust.
New department.
But then, so he tells Dale he needs to sit, and then Chad. This was real Harris, just pure Charles E. Harris storytelling here, because Chad then tells a story that goes on for 2.5 pages of uninterrupted talking, where Dale at no point in time interrupts to question it, to express worry, and the way the story starts is Chad saying, okay, here goes. First of all, I couldn't find the truck. And so any normal person would immediately burst in, like rend their shirt and think, my God, we're going to die. But Dale just sort of sits there casually and lets him keep talking for 2.5 uninterrupted pages.
So, yeah, the truck thing gets somewhat of a parenthetical. All right, first of all, truck's gone.
Yes.
He doesn't even react to that. Like, now comes the weird part, and this is truly wild. Like, I don't know. You had me at the truck disappeared.
Yes. But, yeah, so Dale doesn't care too much about their imminent death, but he goes on to describe the 2 trappers he saw. They were arguing, and he says, if you can remember that big guy at the truck stop in Cheyenne, the one with the eye patch, the one who looked like a pissed off Tom Selleck, he says one of them looked like him, only he had a scraggy-looking beard and looked meaner than hell. So he's we don't know what he's trying to pull off here, but it seems like he's probably going to be in way over his head if he's doing the time travel trope of you run into someone's ancestor who is played by them with a beard and a cowboy hat, Back to the Future-y kind of style. But
unless it's this Patch is the one pulling the strings. Patch discovered.
Wow.
Patch is from the future and went back, developed an intense hatred for the Native Americans, and then used his time machine to go back and beat up a child.
Fanfic writers, get on that. But so it's hard to say if they would have remembered that guy because he was pointed out to us, as by the author, but they never interacted with the guy. They didn't bump into him as he was leaving, and the guy said, "Watch it, you two." So it's unlikely that Dale would remember the guy who was only really addressed by the waitress, like as the guy who had come in from the rodeo. So who knows? But he goes on to say the one with the eye patch, the other called Wilson, Patch Wilson. The other man was called John. His last name wasn't mentioned. And again, Dale is not sitting there like, pounding the floor and cursing the heavens. I don't care. We're going to die in a matter of days. Like, do not fill me in on whether John's last name was mentioned. He sits there and just sort of accepts that.
Yeah, and then he goes into details that are, less important. And again, he has not been interrupted by Dale after this tale. And he's describing the boy. He was wrapped in a buffalo hide when we found him. So who knows her reasons but her? He's talking about the mother there. And then there's this. Then there's the paragraph breaking. Anyway, Dale, the man called John. So he's telling the story, and Dale has the patience to not interrupt him at all. In fact, let him get away with little anyways and throat clearings. And, I'm surprised he didn't pull out a pipe and slowly pack it, contemplatively look at it, and talk about how, this thing, I need to scrape this out. Give me a second here, and I'll just get this all set for you.
I thought that the anyway Dale might have been for the benefit of the reader, who would have naturally assumed Dale would have fled pages ago to, verify the truck wasn't there, or to just abandon this idiot who's talking casually when they're doomed.
Stripped off his clothes and just dove into a pile of snow to take me, sooner rather than later.
Right. Along the same lines as he recounts what the trappers had said, which is something that you better get used to if you're going to be reading Trucking Through Time. Yes. But he says, that's all I heard, because they packed the furs and traps on the mules and rode off. Now listen to this. The boy is the son of an Indian chief by the name of Dark Horse. Dale is listening. Dale is the most attentive and patient man listening to a story that has ever existed. You do not need to encourage him to listen any further.
But unless he's been 5 minutes of a finger in the air and his lips pursed as about to speak, and then he just keeps kind of holding up, and then Chad is holding up one hand, just
right. Sure.
Hold that question.
Right. It's getting to the good part. I swear. But yeah, so Dale finally gets a chance to speak after that, and it was a good thing he waited, because he has a real doozy of what he was waiting to say. He had a chance to pick these words very carefully. Chad, I believe every word you're telling me, and I feel there's only one explanation to the entire situation we're in. We are not in the same time frame we were in after we hit those first gusts of winds.
I think the construction is actually, I'm not correcting. This is how I have it. We are not in the same time frame we were in as we were after we hit the first.
Sorry, I sort of did the thing where you autocorrect what you're reading into being actual English.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just that casual way we refer to the time frame we're in. Then he goes on to say the proof lies. It lies in the fact that we lost all communication to the outside world about the same time our watches stopped at 0800. We have gone back in time. And then he says, now that we know the reality of the situation, just what can we do about it? So Dale has accepted this very quickly.
Well, this is something we mentioned in the first two chapters, is these characters are identical in every way except their names and physical descriptions that are absolutely tacked on to try to give you some differentiation. But that you'd assume that as he wrote his way in, he would find character things that would help you tell them apart. Right. No, sir. He is cementing the idea that these are the exact same mind.
Yes.
To the point that I think it might be a Fight Club type of thing.
Wow.
Where it's just one guy.
Yeah, he's freezing in his truck, and this is his dying sort of vision, is him and Dale.
Yeah, it is astonishing. As we talk about those duos, the Crick and Watson, who we both adore in every way and back everything that they've ever done or said. One was probably, I don't know, maybe he was messy and the other one was neat. One had an even temper. The other was hot-headed and rushed into situations. That's just the odds of any two people, but not a bit of it in this book.
Well,
nothing.
Going with the odd couple, sloppy, neat type of thing like that. That's a cliche at this point in time. It's far more original to make your characters be indistinguishable and virtually sharing the same mind. So I guess kudos.
Yes. Yeah. So then they when they discuss what they're going to do about it. So he gives the whole tale, and I'm sure he's thinking, "Oh my God, Dale will think I'm insane. He'll call into question." Nope, he believes it entirely. And then he says, "I'm glad you said." So then this is his reaction back after he says, "We went back in time. I'm glad you said that part about going back in time, Dale. I've thought the very same thing ever since I heard the wolves howl last night." So will they fight about going back in time? Have any discussion? Nope, they're on the same page immediately.
Sure. Yeah, and what cemented it for him was being in the wilderness of Wyoming and hearing wolves howl. Like more than anything, that realizes that you're in the late 1700s.
They did not. Occam's razor was not available to truckers back in at this time.
Sure. I like that Dale said, "We are running out of food, and if those tracks I saw outside are wolf tracks, we are definitely in a world of hurt." So he is immediately, before Chad had finished his story, accepted they have traveled back in time. But he's heard wolves howl. It sent a chill down his spine. He's seen their tracks, and he's like, if those are wolves, I'm not willing to cast my lot firmly in the wolf camp yet. We've definitely traveled through time, but let's see a wolf before we start making any actual decisions here.
Right. It could be some campers who, for whatever reason, are cranking a wolf howl on their boombox. But we've definitely gone back in time.
Then Chad finishes that sentence you were saying. He says, "I believe we've been drawn here by powers neither of us know about or can explain. I am also sure there is an answer as to why we are here, and that it will soon be revealed to us. We will just have to wait and see what that reason might be, but believe me when I say we will not be denied an answer." So he is sort of like pointing to the big man upstairs and being like, "You hear that?" Like, and I feel like we might be getting denied an answer here. I just don't know if there's going to be that narrative thread that a writer of Charles E. Harris's caliber is capable of providing.
Well, I do like that the no explanation for it, and then telling the readers, just wait and see. That's always a good thing as you're starting the action up and you're intensifying everything. Wait and see you might get an answer as to why we're back in time or what to do about it, but you probably won't.
I was going to wait and see. I have to. We have to wait.
We have no choice. This is another one I thought would be a good thing to direct towards the big man upstairs when they're talking about taking care of the kid. I know we have to do all we can to keep him alive in the event he is the primary reason. Although we do it anyway.
Yes.
We definitely do it anyway, even if our lives didn't depend on it.
Right. Give us a sign here. I mean, we did just realize that our truck is missing, so one more mouth to feed is not going to benefit anybody.
I say that very loudly when I drop something into the bucket at the guy's ringing the bell outside the store.
Right.
Would have done it anyway, but I'm a pretty generous guy.
Yeah, I like that they've immediately started going into the they've done what characters in movies do when they go back in time, where they're like, there's got to be a reason that we're doing this. Maybe this boy is the reason we're here to save him. They've started making those assumptions. As opposed to actually, the things you might do in this situation, like worrying about how you're going to live another 24 hours.
Yeah, I just think it's funny that he didn't give us the smallest thing of, then we picked up that machine that they told us not to break the box open,
Yes.
He could have just done something like that. And then I wonder if it has anything to do with that. Like, no,
sure.
It's just happening.
Yeah. First Patch didn't like wave his finger and, mumble some strange words in a tongue they couldn't understand. And they think back to that and like,
yeah.
Well, so the boy is lying there. He's regaining consciousness, I guess. It says from the confused look in the boy's eyes, they knew he hadn't understand a word said. He could apparently not speak nor understand English. and that's really something you've got to puzzle out, whether someone can speak or understand English. There's no simple test you could do to, say, ask them if they could understand what you're speaking. Even if they're nonverbal, they could nod their yes or no, unless they're Albanian, obviously. But
well, Chad could have reeled off 3.5 paragraphs of explaining what they'd done till that point, not let the boy speak, and then when he was done, see if he looked like he understood any of it and agreed with it.
But the boy is, I guess, coming around, I guess, even though they said he was in a coma earlier. They say with a little food and water and plenty of rest, this boy will be as good as new in no time. So, comas just sort of come out of him.
Yeah. He seems pretty strong is another thing that he says about him, which I don't know where they're getting that, but he's too weak to run away, but he's also pretty strong.
Sure.
So.
I mean, maybe he's got a mutant healing factor that all those whip marks that you would assume are festering and oozing at this point in time. They're just healing right back up after a day or two lying next to under a buffalo hide in a cave. Ideal situations for healing that sort of thing.
With 4 candles, you forget the healing power of 4 candles.
I did forget about those. The candles take a real backseat to the fuzzies in this section.
Holy cow, did this thing go fuzzies on us.
But before we get to the fuzzies, we start our first real perspective switch, which we start to get a lot of. He goes into real George R.R. Martin turf. We're getting a bunch of different situations in this, and they're interspersed without regard for coherence or narrative flow. We get to Blue Dawn. Blue Dawn is the mother of the boy, who we now know is named Slim Fox.
Blue Dawn is also a very decent dishwashing detergent at a good price if you want to try it.
And Slim Fox was a Southern rapper from the early 2000s who appeared on Paul Wall and Master P remixes. So she says Slim Fox, she's worried because he may be dead by now because he was attacked savagely by a white man. He is her son of 12 summers.
Yes, I threw a little party for that, had some friends over. We now know how old the boy is.
Oh, my God.
Thank you. It took going to another character and a different POV to get his age.
Yes, and to lapse into the Tennessee truck driver's understanding of how the Sioux might have talked based on John Wayne movies from the 60s.
Right.
But she does a bunch of that. So if you care at all about this, you're probably going to be upset by Harris's Indian speak here. She says she and her son had stayed behind to police the area. I'm not sure if that was a term that Native Americans are often using, but he uses a lot, to police the area after the tribe had gone, and also to pray for Slim Fox's success on the next buffalo hunt that was to take place in Tucson. So it just is pretty much, I was in an organization that I believe still exists, which is shocking. But I did Indian guides when I was like 8 years old, which was sort of the YMCA's sure. Boy Scouts version. And it was just chock full of that sort of thing. You got bear claws. You would say heap how when someone talked about the good deeds they had done. You got like Thunderbird patches. It was ridiculous. But
I think it still exists, but I'm sure they probably massaged it here and there.
But yeah, so it's pretty much that level of authenticity. We get braves and many suns and moons and summers and yes. Great spirit and all of that. Yeah, this was a good one, a good level of that. This is probably what Blue Dawn was really thinking. They had always policed the area after a long stay to ensure the god of Earth would always provide good hunting at the future camps, according to their beliefs. So it's like Native American Klein. They believe that they had always policed the area after a long stay to ensure the god of Earth would provide good hunting at the future camps, according to their beliefs.
Yeah, that was the point where I noted it as he's already out of his league as far as this other point of view and how to describe it.
What else? They go back to the guys. They end up feeding him peanut butter and honey. They crush up some Tylenol and mix it into the honey, which is an interesting scenario. Just drugging the 12-year-old boy.
And also, I thought it was curious that they say he lit up as any kid his age would at yes. their first taste of peanut butter and honey.
Absolutely.
I believe peanut butter worldwide is known as one of those foods that repulses anyone who hasn't been sort of culturally inured to a thick paste of ground up.
I can vouch for that. I have a friend from Spain who, and before he moved to America, probably over a decade ago, just said like that is something that I heard of, and it sounded so disgusting to me. As he's opening like a can of sardines, like for us to eat, like of Spanish type of thing. So yeah, cultural differences, plus the whole allergy aspect.
Yeah, I think it's in ESL classes. I knew someone who taught ESL, and that was just one of their gags is like what foods, like get people to talk about what foods that Americans eat. And peanut butter was number one, and raw mushrooms is number two, in case you were wondering. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So they feed him the drugged up peanut butter and honey. This is where we get the first I think mention of crushing up the Tylenol, and Chad says, "Splendid idea, Dr. Rhea." So that's
I think he's just being, that's the humor, I think.
Oh yeah. But like that was the first time we'd seen the last name, so there was no way we were supposed to say, what? Like, was that a Dr. Quinn crony? Like, I don't. So it was
exactly. Yeah.
33 pages later was when we got the first real introduction. My name is Chad Hand, and this is my colleague Dale Rhea. Which on the playground, it must have been a rough go for Dale Rhea when he was Slim Fox's age for the boys. Probably.
I'm going to read the first sentence of a 3-paragraph exchange, just the first couple words. This is how their back and forth goes. That's the most encouragement we've had so far, Chad. Next, and then it goes on. Next, I agree, partner. Next, I know you're right, Chad.
It really is. It's like the trope of someone facing left and then doing both sides of the conversation, but then just turning right and then turning left to speak both parts of it.
It would have been great if that would have been Gollum's trait in The Lord of the Rings. We must get the ring from him. I agree 100%.
Yes. Yeah, eliminate all conflict from the split personality. Yeah. So then they go out to Chad goes to look for some more stuff, I guess, or maybe they both go out to raid some supplies from the truck. But we get something that I marked as an early dumb sentence of the week. It's not my winner, but Chad climbed every hill in the immediate area and found nothing but hills, and more hills. Not a sign of any living thing, except a few antelope grazing and a few birds. One he thought to be an eagle or a hawk. So not a sign of any living thing. Sure, a bunch of antelope, a few birds. They might be eagles or hawks. Right. Other than this teeming land of fauna.
Right. I just want to go back before we miss it. He says they're speculating about what the boy might be thinking. And Chad says something to the fact, there goes the neighborhood, but I'm not really sure. And I just thought, Chad, this is making you less likable and clean cut. And you're using that cliche of there goes the neighborhood.
Oh, dear. Who is he referring to?
I think he's talking about the boy speculating about them, but still, I don't know. That he's got it at the tip of his tongue is a little disturbing.
Well, it's that I guess if they are the woke truckers, they're putting themselves in his point of view. So,
well, quickly after they speculate again. I don't know how far Pocahontas has to travel to find help.
Yeah, that has taken on some pretty bad context lately too.
Yes,
but they whipped that one out without a second thought. Mm-hmm. So they said that more normal human thoughts. Chad is thinking, Dale certainly didn't deserve being in this situation. I know this is a real situation. It is not a dream. So that's the thoughts of a normal, sane human who is reassuring themselves and the reader that they're not dying in a snowbank somewhere and having this as their dying fantasy. And then he says,
maybe he's just heading that off at the pass as far as the reader. Like, look, this is not a dream. When we get to the end of this, it's not going to be him waking up in his truck.
Sure. Yeah, I guess so. He's pinching himself and realizing that it's not a dream. But then he says, I've come to a conclusion. We are trapped in the late 17th or early 18th century. That means white men are scarce and Indians are plenty. You and I are here for whatever reason, and it now becomes very serious to our survival. Which is always a pet peeve of mine when things become very serious to my survival.
Especially considering the time frame that you're now in. Just something I speculate about all the time.
I also just the late 17th or early 18th century is just a very vague. It's funny that you can't just say, oh, I'm just going to guess this is the early 18th century without any sort of reasoning or anything behind that. He cages his bet. He hedges his bet there. He's cagey on the actual era.
And he gives no indication of why he thinks that. I mean, right? It's just
Sure.
pulled out of thin air.
Sure. Well, they had been reading those books to put themselves to sleep on their journey.
That's true. I had messed up the events here. The what's her name? The mother.
Blue Dawn.
Blue Dawn does track the boy to the cave, and that's where they meet her, and that's who they're talking about. When she like screams and runs away.
Right.
That's who. There goes the neighborhood. So, and then they call her Pocahontas. So that's...
Hey, whew. Well, then we get to this section. We have the Indian chief's son with us, who just got beat by another white man, and we've been spotted by his mother, who just happens to be the wife of the chief himself. That checks out. And then he says, it all adds up to a bad day for the home team, and we just happen to be the visiting team that's trailing. So
the metaphor is shattered at this point.
Yeah. I mean, for a guy that has, been the equipment driver for a football team for 25 years, it doesn't sound like he's ever seen a sporting event before. So it adds up to a bad day for the home team. I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But we just happen to be the visiting team who's trailing, which would be a good day for the home team. They're the visiting team because they're out of their element. But
I think he's saying mid-botched analogy, he realized, wait, we're not the home team. Mm-hmm. So he flipped and tried to land tried to stick the landing, but his knees buckled and he took 3 clumsy steps and fell over.
Sure, or it's a bad day for the home team, but it's even worse for the visiting team who's trailing. But so maybe the home team lost a key player, even though they're beating the visiting team. But obviously a confusing sentence. I tried to make some sense of it, turning, as always, to the dark web.
Sure.
They could not make heads or tails of it. I think the main thing was that it was sort of like just the like a country expression of this guy from Tennessee. Sort of maybe it was something we didn't understand just because it was sort of maybe a southern thing.
Sure. Yeah.
But they did attempt to sort of parse out like how this would have been uttered by the author himself. So it. Does it make more sense after we listen to this? I'm not sure, but I think we should just let the listeners listen and see if they can choose for themselves.
Sure.
All right, let's hear the dark web. Welcome back to Tennessee football here on K-Fan. I'm Marty Stevens. Volunteers trail the Crimson Tide of Alabama 21-7 with 4 minutes remaining here in the fourth quarter. And joining me in the booth is the special guest we promised you folks. You couldn't play a football game if the equipment didn't make it to the stadium. And Charles E. Harris is the guy who makes sure it gets there. Chuck, welcome.
I'll tell you what, Marty, I'm glad to be here. Been driving the equipment truck for 25 years. I'm starting to wonder if you'd ever invite me up here.
Well, it's our pleasure to have you. Hasn't been the outcome we were hoping from our Vols today, though.
Well, I'll tell you what, drop passes, missed defensive assignment, it all adds up to a bad day for the home team, and we just happen to be the visiting team that's trailing.
Hey, now who's in the booth with me here, Chuck Harris or Yogi Berra?
Well, it's like I always say, you can't win if the fish ain't biting, and the fish don't bite. When you're fishing with bait, they don't want to bite. Don't get me started on that second scoop of butter brickle.
Yeah, well, Good thing we're playing football, not fishing today. Looks like we're ready for the play. Thompson takes the snap, fakes the handoff to back. Oh, he is leveled from behind by the All-American linebacker from Alabama.
Thompson's got to step up. After all, a duck with a hat ain't going to sing you in the right direction, and they sure as hell don't grant wishes to now matter how big your belt buckle is.
Well, Thompson looks shaken up, but he's waving the trainers off.
Telling him, damn it, boy, do I look like Hank Williams or do I look like the Treaty of Ghent?
Yeah, that'll bring us to 2nd and 16. Coach Travis probably thought about airing it out here. The snap. He's got Mitchell open downfield. Thompson passes. It's caught for the touchdown!
Well, you can fool a cobbler from Wichita all day long, but once the fiddles come out, Cornpone ain't got a sheepshank's chance at eating hardtack. That is for sure.
I'm not sure I follow, Chuck. But say, do you think they should go for 2 here?
Well, you can leave riblets out in your foyer, sure, but see where your larder is come Arbor Day.
Well, it looks like they're going to take the sure thing and kick the extra point.
Rattlesnakes.
Chuck, are you following the action on the field at all?
Damn it, boy, do I look like Hank Williams or do I look like the Treaty of Ghent?
I think you already said that. Well, the point after is good. The Volunteers set to kick off, and you got to expect a little treachery here. What do you think, Chuck? Onside kick?
My very educated mother just served me slithy toves, I'll tell you that. You can't put the White Lightning back in the banjo once the Bronco done run for Congress. Rattlesnakes!
Yeah, all right. Okay, I'm calling it. That's enough. Cut the simulation.
What's the matter, Marty? That was going great. We've never made it past the extra point before.
Going great? That was trash. That thing's never going to pass for a real person.
Hey, the Folksy Bot 10,000 is the most advanced deepfake hillbilly simulator that's ever been developed. My words, as good as fleas on a coonhound till you spill molasses at the Sadie Hawkins dance.
Oh, yeah. That sounds super convincing. Hey, Folksy Bot, what should I order at the Waffle House?
My pappy never met a storm crow who ain't tarnation.
Look, just get me a real partner. For the money you've spent on this idiotic project, you could have hired the next Bob Costas. I'll be in my trailer.
Idiotic project, huh? Fool. The Folksy Bot 10,000 may have failed, but my next human replacement will be so seamless, no one will ever be able to tell.
Boy, Connor, it sure is cold out there.
That's for sure, Mike.
Rattlesnake. Wow. Yeah. Well, that's a lot to take in.
It was that one sort of bit off more than it could chew. I would say Charles E. Harris style.
Right. Gets to right away to a great sentence he's interacting with the little boy again. Blue Fox. Is it Blue Fox?
Slim Fox.
Slim Fox. Sorry. Blue Dawn, Slim Fox. Well, little one, you go on and laugh. At least I know we're bonding finally. I said that to both my sons, and they never spoke to me again. So we're estranged now.
Bonding finally. It really. He's been out of his coma for maybe an hour, so it's probably the fastest bonding anyone's ever had.
Pork and beans can't shovel him into his mouth quick enough after saying something like that.
I love that he's, I guess they don't have many options, but this guy has clearly been on death's door, so they decide to just nurse him back to health by feeding him, shoveling him full of trucker garbage, fruit cocktail and pork and beans out of a can. But yeah, so then they decide that they've got to transport him. They can't leave him here because I think they thought that Blue Dawn was going to bring back all the her tribe to rough him up, I guess. So they decide they need to move him, and what better way to transport him than using your spare tarp
and creating out of it what's the word?
Oh, I don't.
He just whips it out. I mean, after using the most rudimentary language, then they pull out the French trapper word for a conveyance or whatever, and you're just expected to. Of course, you know what that means.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit annoying. I didn't even look it up. I assume that's just what it is.
Yeah. It was. What was it? I forget what it was, but yeah, I know what you're talking about. But yeah, they give you that word, and then they also spare you no detail of how they're repurposing this tarp into making it the
tarp cutting is so good.
I mean, I just put I wrote down the first part of it, but he says, "Okay, Dale," Chad began. "First, we cut 4 feet off the tarp long ways. using 6 inches on either side to roll up on the poles for the tip. Then the shorter poles we tie onto the long poles crossways with the bungee straps. He really he went on WikiHow and pretty much transcribed whatever was there, or he has done this once before and just really didn't want the people in the tarp repurposing community to call him out on these any inaccuracies.
And as I think somebody on Patreon pointed out, how did this guy get through all this trucking without knowing how to spell bungee? Right. Because you see it a lot here, and he's misspelled bungee strap. So that's he already blew it in the tarp cutting community and bungee strap repurposing community.
Not communities you want to be angry with you, because that is a oh boy, powerful
lobby.
I'm looking for the what's it called, the name of the thing, and I can't find it. Oh well.
It's buried in all this tarp cutting, so I can understand how you'd be dazzled by all of that and not to see it. I don't see it either.
Yeah.
But we quickly get to another point of view shift.
Yeah,
right.
We get to the back to like the Indian camp or their village or something, and
we get to Lone Eagle.
Oh my God.
And then we get to, and this is where it was very petty of me, but that we get to Dark Horse,
mm-hmm.
which is misspelled at least once as Dark House.
Oh God.
Which made me laugh to, picturing a Native American Hugh Laurie, running around. But, we're not going to point out typos because there are many and sometimes funny, but often they're just sort of, oh, there's another typo.
What would Native American Hugh Laurie sound like? Come on.
Well, let's see. So it's Hugh Laurie, but then he's suppressing his British accent. So he's, I'm really angry with my tribe, and I'm not going to talk to the great spirit in the sky today. There, how's that?
That's good. Well done. Or a dark house could be like, when they see the Jehovah's Witnesses coming and they turn off all the lights to make sure to look like no one's home.
Operation Dark House, quick, everyone.
We get the new characters start coming fast and furious in this moment. Not only do we get Dark Horse, we get Lone Eagle, Lost Wolf, Badger, and Yanni.
Yanni, the new age keyboardist.
Yes. I didn't know.
From the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, where is he? I always assumed Yanni was, Greek or something, but...
He's Greek, yeah.
Okay.
That's why Yanni came out of left field for me.
Yeah, so Badger and Yanni, they could be the Sioux Morning Zoo duo, perhaps.
Well, I was shocked to see Dante and Ile in the tribe as well.
Yeah, that was very surprising. And then you get Wild Eyes, the Medicine Man. And we did get someone, a listener, sent us in a spreadsheet that's tracking all these new characters. It has
oh, good.
It has all their first appearances, and then it has the page that appears on, and then it has the page where they die, because a lot of these people get introduced. We do not hear anything other than they exist, and then they are killed almost immediately. So it's going to be hard to keep track of who's important in these situations. But for now, it seems like Dark Horse, obviously, and then Wild Eyes, the Medicine Man. They actually have some sort of character to them.
Well, we talked about it before going on air. It's very difficult to track the action in this, and there's a lot of it because none of the action is described in the normal way that someone describes action. It's all someone else telling someone else about the action, and you don't know who's speaking until the end of the 6-paragraph description of action. He doesn't say, Slim Fox began to speak, and then you get 4 paragraphs. You get 4 paragraphs, and then you get said Slim Fox.
Sure, yes. Yeah, it is disorienting because it's not a situation you've ever found yourself in as a actual human, because you always have cues as to who you're talking to, vocal types of things. You never just have a character who sounds exactly like every other character talking, and then it's revealed at the end. It's a big surprise, so you can sort of play a guessing game as you go, but that's no way to read and enjoy a book.
Yeah, I would even say that it's not quite as much with the Native American characters that they just agree with each other at the beginning of every sentence, but their speech is not, there's nothing to tell anyone from anyone else, for sure.
Sure. Yeah, and so I'm looking at the spreadsheet. It was made by listener Heather. We have had 23 characters by the time this week's assignment was done. So
wow, yeah, I need that. I'm a little baffled. I also couldn't tell. There's times where it's sort of flashbacky, or it seems like it is because he's describing previous missions to track down the patch guy or whatever. Yeah. So I got a little tangled up there. I'm not gonna lie.
Later on, characters' names start rhyming. That's delightful. But yeah, that's all I had for this chapter. They sort of plan that I think they send off Wild Eyes to commune with the Great Spirit or whatever, get a vision for him, and they are going to decide how to handle these new white men who are in their area.
Well, I just have one thing. It's I think Lone Eagle who, the chief who says, Bad Eye Wilson, the man we traded with and allowed to trap on our land, has attacked Blue Dawn. And I just thought, Patch is not a good name, but Bad Eye is less than a lateral move. That's right. It's not better.
Right. So his name is we got his real name, then we got his nickname, and then we got the Indian's nickname for his nickname.
Right.
He's it's going to be confusing.
Yes.
And he's potentially a character we have already met's ancestor, or him, who has already figured out time travel. So,
right.
We can move on to Chapter 4 then. Chapter 4 was a slim chapter. There's nothing really that differentiates these chapters from in a traditional chapter division sense, because they're all jumping back and forth between these characters now, and they don't necessarily end on any sort of dramatic note. They don't skip ahead in time when they end, but we're going to go with them as he has divvied them up. So Chapter 4, we just met them. I'd grown so attached to Yanni and Badger. But Chapter 4 begins thusly. The first shot caught Yanni in the temple, splattering blood all over Badger's back as he turned to see his friend hit the ground behind him. The second shot hit Badger's shoulder and almost knocked him off his mount. So we hardly knew ye. They are both killed by Patch and John. No last name for John.
I wonder if in some ways he's like a George R.R. Martin. Here's a character. They're dead. You didn't see that coming, did you?
No, this was... Yeah, everyone had already started, their Yanni and Badger/Fic, and now they're just left to wonder what could have been.
But the reaction to blowing his head off is, damn, John, you blew this one's head clean off. Can't get nothing for his scalp because they ain't nothing left, Patch said. But this here'll bring us plenty. I ain't fussing because they were a blame good shot. But next time you shoot an Injun, aim for his body and save his pretty long hair. And I just hope for a second the next thing I read would be, that's for sure, said. Yes. I agree completely with what you just said.
Right. Yeah, well, we don't get that because these two do not get along. They're part of the same gang, but Patch is a Bad Eye, is clearly is the leader and is a disagreeable sort. He's not someone that you really want to speak out against, as John ends up learning the hard way. But when I read it, it had been a week, obviously, but I did not realize how thick he laid on their Western country speak, because it is chock full of misspellings and weird misspellings. Like in this sentence, I have the two sentences. He says, "Can't please you," spelled correctly. No way, 'cause you spelled Y-U. Going a bitch at whatever I do. Hell, I was aimin', A-I-M-E-N, fur, F-E-R, his horse in, like, N,
the letter
N. Missed, John replied. So he's worse than texting is the way that these guys are talking, like in terms of misspellings and abbreviations and stuff.
I always prefer when an author makes clear that they are speaking in an accent and then leaves it the hell alone instead of me having to puzzle out the thick, the different words. But
Yes.
But he lays it on here, and so it's a little hard to track.
Yeah. So they are fighting, and then we do go back to the Sioux. The guy, the medicine man, comes back and Blue Dawn has reported that she saw no weapons, but there was a bright yellow buffalo skin over the mouth of the cave. They may have strong medicine. I have not seen the yellow buffalo. So that is more just more of Charles E. Harris's interpretation of how the Sioux would have communicated, trotting out the strong medicine cliche. But we also get a couple new characters, Red Sun and Blue Duck, who was a fan favorite, it seemed. People were not sure what a blue duck was or what that might look like. I thought it might be a tribute to the drawing that Billy Madison made in Billy Madison.
Of course.
He drew a blue duck because he had always wanted to see a blue duck and wondered what it might look like. But any thoughts on the blue duck?
I was just thinking that I'm sure that much of the time Blue Duck and Slim Fox spend with each other is like, God, your name sucks, man. Nuh-uh, yours does. Everybody else has pretty noble-sounding things. Dark Horse is pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's no Mad Dog, for sure. But I mean,
it's no... my Indian guide's name was Woods Walker, and my dad's was Long Shadow. So it's...
oh, good.
Yeah. Yeah, if there had been a blue duck... I distinctly remember my friend Josh, who was also in Indian Guides, making fun of another guy in the same troop whose name was Speckled Snake. And I don't remember if that was the... I think he was making fun of his name. I think he also just didn't like him. So if we get
That's not terrible.
No, it's not. But we were 8, so it was very easy just to scapegoat somebody. If we get a speckled snake in this book, that will make me happy.
Blue Duck also sounds like it could be one of those, $5.99 bottles of wine from one of the Australian places.
Yes, absolutely. Smoking Loon, Blue Duck. I looked it up. There was crappy taverns that probably sell T-shirts with the tavern logo on them in Outer Banks, North Carolina, the Blue Duck Saloon. So it must be something. But then we get back to our buddies, Chad and Dale. They are, and some of your favorite constructions. Dale suggests that maybe we should wait until it took them so much time to build the tarp, which if you read the tarp constructing scenes, you will absolutely 100% believe that it did take them that much time because you hear every detail of it. But Dale suggests that since it took them so much time, they should wait to leave until the morning. Chad's response? Any guesses?
I strongly disagree. This is where we part ways, my friend.
I think you are right. I think you are right, Dale. We should wait till morning. We can gather enough wood to keep a rather large fire going and light some fuzzies to keep any intruder out. Any ideas how Chad might respond to Dale agreeing with him?
You son of a bitch. How dare you bring your back sass to me when all this time I've done nothing but try to protect you.
Yeah, I think that would be a wise decision too.
Oh, damn.
So I hope. All right, we'll take an over under right now. How many times they do disagree with each other over the course of the book? We will track this over the next 200 pages.
I hope it would be great if the last chapter was just an epic fight to the death.
Yes.
Chad walked away from Dale's battered body, the victor. It's a travois, by the way. A travois.
Oh, there we go. Yep, those truckers were. I guess they might have learned about that in the book as well. That can be the hand wave for any time they understand the late 17th or early 18th century. They read about it in the book.
Hey, by the way, fuzzies. Did they explain that, or did they just say they were stocking up on them at the beginning? Or I felt like the introduction of fuzzies also was not set up.
Fuzzies were very much like Dr. Rhea.
Okay.
Where they mention it and assumed that we would just sort of understand what they were talking about. I almost mentioned it last session, but eventually they did bring them in, and through context, we were led to understand that they were trucker flares.
Yes. I don't know why. Fuzzies to me seems... It's like when you go to a restaurant and the thing that you want has a ridiculous name. I always feel resentful, of having to say, I want the super yummy nummy burger.
Right. Yes.
And fuzzies seems like that. Like it's called a flare. Flare is a nice Fuzzies is it's unmanning, I would say.
You would if you were Maxim.
I've been she unmanned me.
But yeah, I agree. It's like I guess truckers do have all their slang, which in a book about trucking, it seems like it has been remarkably devoid of classic trucker slang, other than the occasional 10-4 they are still saying to each other, not over the radio, just to remind you that they are truckers. But yeah, I guess fuzzies is sort of the term he learned and is staking his cred on.
Yeah, it seems like bungee would be one that you could have a better name for. You could improve its lot, but
sure.
Improving flares, you don't do it by calling it a fuzzy.
Give me some of them stretchies, Dale.
Yeah. So we go back to the that's just a very brief interlude of their travois, and they're agreeing with each other, and then the medicine man comes back, and he's gathered news from the Great Spirit.
Yes.
And he says this: the two have great knowledge and powers, but will protect Slim Fox and keep him from harm. They have already saved his life. He lives now. The two will do a great deal of good for the Sioux. They are our friends. And I just thought, E.L. James gives a silent nod of approval for dissipating any tension. So their chief enemies are, no, we're not your enemies. We love you guys, and we're really glad you're around. I agree with you, Chad and Dale.
Yeah, I think the last chapter had ended with them whooping a war cry, like 50 Braves or something like that. But yeah, 100% dissipated. He is going through the unprecedented step of agreeing with them even though he hasn't met them yet, which is truly stunning.
Here's something we can all relate to. We get just a little vignette back at the camp. Fuzzies, of course, are there. The boy had fallen asleep after a can of pork and beans and some fruit cocktail. Oh boy, we can all relate to that, huh?
Yeah, that's.
Well, I hit the pork and beans pretty hard, man. I'm just gonna turn in for the night.
Yeah, call it a trucker's Thanksgiving.
Oh, so that's the chapter. I don't think I have anything more.
No, yeah, it was a very brief one. And for whatever reason, he's not portioning them out very well. But we can move on to chapter 5 just as soon as I check.
My pencil is back, so I'm ready for fanfic.
Wow, where had it been?
I was in a drawer that I don't go into much, and I got it back.
Well, you will identify whether these passages are actually from Trucking for Time or are fanfic written by our listeners, and you will either be incorrect or I will agree with you, Chad and Dale style. We got 5 of them. They could be all real, they could be all fake, or a combination of the two. Let's get it started. Number 1. A thought slammed into Chad like a bowling ball hits bowling pins. He investigated. George Donner? Is it now December in the year 1846? Yes, said George Donner. My God, Dale. My God, Dale. We've rescued George Donner and the Donner Party. The truck made a stop on the journey home for us to do good again, Chad smiled. But I think I remember something, Chad. The Donner Party's hardship was in 1846, earlier than the Battle of the Bighorn in 1876. The truck isn't taking us home, it's taking us back in time. At Dale's discovery, both Chad and Dale silently shocked for longer than they realized.
Wait, what?
At Dale's discovery, both Chad and Dale silently shocked for longer than they realized.
Well, I mean, that's fanfic, but I like the touch. I like the touch, but I'm going to say it's fanfic.
Because of the
bowling pins.
Okay.
That's I don't know.
Okay. All right. We will move on to number 2. Dark Horse held out the peace pipe in a gesture of peace and understanding.
Okay.
Dale, I think the chief wants us to smoke the peace pipe with him, Chad said. Damn it, boy, I know that. Don't I read all the same books you do? Dale said. But what if there's something in that peace pipe that will make us fail our drug tests and lose our trucking licenses when we get back to our own time? If we get back to our own time. I know you're right, Chad said, but I think there's a risk we have to take. 10-4? 10-4, partner, Dale said. I'll go first.
Oh, well, that's fanfic because he disagreed with him. Well, he chastised him.
But he said, I know you're right, Dale.
But he said, damn it.
Well, damn it, boy is there's a lot of damn it boys. All right. Well, you said it's fanfic. We will move on. Number 3. You look like a dried prune, but you look clean and neat. I see you shaved, and light feathers look squeaky clean too, Dale teased. I don't think you two need hot springs to take a bath. You two could make ice water boil in a minute or so. Did you have as much fun as I think you did? Or are my eyes deceiving me by the looks of contentment on your guilty faces? He kidded.
Wow, that's kidding. Okay.
So that's it.
Oh, that's it. Boy, I think that's fanfic. I'm probably gonna get so burned on these, but I think it's fanfic.
All right. Moving on to number 4. Dale and Chad followed closely behind Jim Eagle as they rode through a small town just outside Green River. They nodded at one or two folks who happened to be in the streets at that time of day. One of the passerby gave them a confused look but nodded back, saying, "Good evening, Father Rhea," with a hint of confusion in his voice. Dale was taken aback. "I'm so bone-weary, I don't think I could possibly look much like a man of God at the moment, if I ever do," Dale thought. "And how did that man know my surname when I've never seen him before in my life?" They continued riding past a small graveyard and a church from which emerged a hurrying priest in dusty robes. He paid no attention to the riders until he reached the Lick Gate, but when he looked up, Dale stared down into his own face. Their mutual shock was evident, but also short-lived, for at that moment, Patch Wilson began firing from the side of the church, startling the horses and sending the priest sprawling on the ground.
Well, first of all, I hope to God that there are a bunch of Chad and Dales set loose in every time frame, in infinite time universes.
Rick and Morty style?
Yes, but I think that this is real.
Okay. Was it the term Lickgate that got you?
That was part of it, I will admit. So if this is a fanfic, well done.
I'm looking that up now. All right. Gateway covered with a roof found at the entrance to a traditional English or English-style churchyard.
Covered with bright yellow buffalo hide.
And beyond it lies a lick, which is what the protagonist of Ready Player One had to play in the first egg challenge. So it all comes back to Klein.
By
Number
the way,
5.
Before you get to that, were you excited to learn the color of the tarp by secondhand through the?
Very much. Yeah. We have not seen the yellow buffalo before. Was a very classy way to make that to call our attention to that.
All right, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
So, yeah, it's fine. Number 5 and final. Collins landed flat on his tail with a thud. "Collins, I think you're outclassed. If you continue this altercation, he may get mad and hurt you. He's just toying with you, but if he gets serious, you're in real trouble. Why don't you apologize for being such a dipshit and shake his hand before he really gets rough," Chad mocked. Collins looked at Chad hard enough to stare a hole in his chest. He leaped to his feet and came at Chad on a dead run, cursing with each step. "Damn it, boy, he just won't learn, partner," Dale said as Chad kicked high in the air, catching Collins in the side of the head. Collins flew backwards and landed on his back. When he finally stopped rolling, Chad turned to Dale and said, "Damn it, boy, you're right."
Oh.
So we haven't met Collins yet, but Collins looms large in the next chapter.
He's the very first thing in chapter 5. I think that is fanfic because it seems like the "damn it boy" got hit pretty hard there. So I'm going to say fanfic.
Okay. All right, let's review. I think, I don't know, maybe you want to put that pencil back in the drawer.
Oh, crap.
Number 1, the one about rescuing the Donner Party, you said fanfic. That is correct. That is fanfic written by Lauren, a Patreon supporter. Good stuff. The discovery, the sentence, "At Dale's discovery, both Chad and Dale silently shocked for longer than they realized," is so bad that I'm very impressed that someone wrote that wasn't Charles E. Harris.
Yeah, that was very enticing. Yeah.
And then the next one, you also got correct. That was fanfic by Doug, who also is a Patreon supporter. I thought that Dark Horse held out the peace pipe in a gesture of peace and understanding was, again, a chef's kiss.
Yep.
Repeating a word twice in a sentence is something that Harris likes to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then number 3 was, "You look like a dried prune. Are my eyes deceiving me by the looks of contentment on your guilty faces?" is real. You thought that was fanfic, but that is so it looks like there's some romance happening You two could make ice water boil.
Wow.
So we've got that to look forward to. We've got number 4 was the mutual shock, the dead ringer, the reverend who looks like Dale, and the Lickgate fanfic written by Heather. You thought that was real, so
Lickgate. All right, Heather, we told you.
It's the little details that can sometimes sway one way or another.
Yep, I saw the little bait in the trap, and I reached my hand in and it snapped on it.
Powerless. And then number 5, you thought it was fanfic. That is real. The Collins, who we learn has been rears his head as a potential villain, is evidently attacking them later in the book, and Chad has to karate kick him in order to subdue him.
Pat Collins is his name.
Wow.
Which, for all I know, could be the name of the character. It's Pat. I don't know.
True. Pat Collins was I believe we've talked about local news in the D.C. area before. He was the guy who would go out. The first image search for Pat Collins NBC sums up his character very well. He was the guy that would go out. I always hated him as a middle schooler, high schooler, watching the local news, going out to do human interest stories on the street. He's got a punchable looking face. So, but the two Damn It Boys are. We've got someone who wrote it with an email cataloging all the Damn It Boys so far. So they do not cease later in the book. Well, wow. All right. Yeah, 2 out of 5 today.
Ooh, boy.
Well done, Fanfic writers. Even if you didn't get them right, you made us laugh at the construction. So
I snapped my Dixon Ticonderoga, cursed it, and spit on it. I have an addendum from before we dig into chapter 5. Chapter 4 does end with pure distilled trucking through time. Okay. With this, we're going to be just fine, Chad. I have a feeling everything's going to work out for the best. We must keep the faith. Somehow, I feel the same way, Dale. We must keep the faith.
Not just agreeing, but word for word restating.
Yep. So that's pretty pure Harris.
Well, yeah. So chapter 5 begins with the antagonist of our last, not fanfic, real passage, Pat Collins, who had been scouting for General Rollins for 3 years.
Collins and Rollins, yes. What a team!
So I mean, come on, you're introducing these characters. They're made up as far as we know, and I guess unless he's throwing real characters at us in a historical fiction kind of thing. But don't make them rhyme right off the bat. Now that's all we can think about.
In the same sentence, too.
Yeah.
Seussian.
Yeah, true. And so we do not meet General Rollins yet, but we do get some backstory. General Rollins had let Patch Wilson sort of like trade on his turf, but now the general wanted Wilson badly because Wilson had made him appear incompetent by allowing him to steal 50 U.S. government horses from the fort right under his nose. I don't think anyone makes anyone appear incompetent in that. I think you're definitely incompetent if that's what's happening.
Right.
There's no, there's no one looking at him being like, well, he let that idiot take 50 horses right out from under his nose. He's incompetent as hell.
They have given the illusion that I'm incompetent by stealing these incredibly valuable horses.
Right. It's like the media being cagey about, the alleged crimes. Like, well, all right. We know you have to do that for journalistic standards, but this crime happened. He's an idiot.
And as he's telling this backstory, you get this sentence, which made me laugh. Of course, the general blamed the Indians at first until Captain Tim Troy caught one of Wilson's gang and killed him in a shootout in a saloon. It's like, duh, of course. Yes. Why did you even write this? We knew that's... Yeah, we knew that's how that would play out with Captain Tim Troy and Wilson's gang.
That's what tips the scales. And, believe it or not, we get details of that encounter in shocking detail later on. But yeah, as presented, it's we're left to just take his word that is what tipped the scales towards believing it was Patch Wilson.
And this is where this maybe lost me because, again, it's just a description of we're trying to meet Pat Collins here. And this is the backstory. The general wanted Wilson badly because this. And then for insurance, he sent Collins to hire 3 Apache. I was like, what's happened? Who's this guy? Who's Collins? And then Patch Wilson and John Starnes. Captain Tim was all Army.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Yes, it's the you might remember the in the room, Lisa's mom asking Lisa, "What does Denny do?" And Lisa starts a story that starts with, "Johnny wanted to adopt Denny." Yes. And then we get she talks for a 30 seconds solid, and so that's what Denny does, Mom.
Yes, Lieutenant Forbes is in here somewhere.
Is Lieutenant Forbes the one who's writing to his wife who's back home?
I don't know. Yes. But wait, who's Captain Tim? I now realize I don't even know who that is.
Captain Tim is a good fighting man and very good at infantry deployment.
What is his relation to Pat Collins?
Pat Collins.
I thought we were being introduced to Pat Collins.
Well, Pat Collins was out scouting for General Rollins, who believed that the Indians had stolen his horses until Captain Tim killed one of Patch Wilson's right-hand men.
Okay, because Captain Tim had gone to Green River to send a message to his wife.
Yeah, his wife, he's trying to recruit her to come back out to Wyoming, or is that the preacher who is also trying to message his wife in Pittsburgh?
Oh my God.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just it's like a David Simon show here. We've got all these characters. We're going to get all their perspectives, and whether or not they die in the next chapter or not, we're certainly getting introduced to them. But let's talk about Captain Tim's journey into town.
Oh yes,
this is great. He went. He was good. This is again. He went into a saloon where the horse was tied to inquire. When this rugged trapper raised a rifle on him. The trapper was too slow, and the captain put a bullet just below his heart. He, the trapper, must have been plenty mad at his two partners because he gave a full description of both just before he died. And so if you think that is ridiculous, that he would, before dying, he would give a full description of both of them to Captain Tim, it gets way more ridiculous.
Well, in fact, at that point, I had triple underlined it and was diving for the dark web to find something, see if anyone had expounded upon this. But I did not need to, because our own author expounds on it in a way that can't be bested. So we should get to that.
It is incredible. It's essentially Jim Dalen's death speech. He said Wilson and Starnes were cold-blooded evil men and very clever. With his last few words of life, he told the captain, "They ain't to be trusted, Captain." Oh, okay. The cold-blooded evil men are not to be trusted. I was gonna go let them sell me life insurance, but now that you've elaborated further, I've decided that would be a bad idea.
Right. But they're even worse than he describes here. He goes on. They go off raping and killing just for the mere pleasure of it. And little kids, too.
I didn't pick up on the
wow.
Yeah, on the order of operations there. You're applying that second sentence to the first one.
Yikes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah, so no tell my son that I regret never kicking him out that day, and right. Tell my wife my drinking really brought me to ruin.
Yeah, I lapsed from the church, but if you have a Bible, please put my hand on it. I'm ready to re-accept God. No,
no.
He really does. He it's like I feel like this has been a joke in movies, just the cliche of a guy dying for 2 solid minutes, but that's what he does. He dies for a page and a half. He said, "After we stole your horses, Patch Dunn told Starnes he was going to kill me as soon as I fell asleep, so that they would have to split the profits twixt the two of them."
Yeah.
Then he talks about raping and killing the little kids. Then he says, "Catch him, Captain, or they'll just go on killing and hurting folks." And then it says he died before he could tell where they had gone. It was like, well, damn it. you had 3 minutes to give me that information while you're just spilling your guts.
Less detail about every little thing. More, get to the next point.
Yeah, we don't need about plans they had to kill you that they didn't put into practice now that you're actually dying.
It'd be great to just recreate the scene, but he fake dies after every sentence that he says.
Yes.
So indeed, the scene would go on for 15 and a half minutes.
Oh.
I heard him
One more
say
thing.
so. I ain't no saint myself.
I caught Patch Wilson shoplifting jerky. Also, doesn't really drop in the bucket after the raping kids thing, but just figured you should know it. Return that jerky to the owner if you find it.
And also, I'm saying all this because I'm really mad at them. They used to ride ahead of me on the trail and whisper to each other, and I knew they were talking about me. That's why I'm telling you all this in great detail.
I see a light. There it is. I had never really enjoyed going to Sunday school, but anyway. So we have that's Tim's Tracker Tim's backstory. Captain Tim.
Captain Tim.
Okay. But
so
then it loops back to Tracker Collins.
You are a good Indian. The very next paragraph. So this is Captain Tim's story. No break. The next paragraph. You're a good Indian scout, Collins, the captain had said. Where are we? We were just in a saloon with a shootout where he shot someone above the heart after he had tied his horse to an Inquirer, whatever that is.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think we're back with Collins, who's having a flashback. And so we learned that Collins travels with 3 Indians these are the guys that they saw from the truck in the very beginning after they traveled back in time. He says Tracker Collins is worried that the general, will think less of his Indian buddies. He says he only hoped the general would accept them as good trackers and not as savages as he thinks all Indians are in his mind.
Oh, wow.
Not not as he thinks in his pancreas or in his lymph nodes or anything. So we get more of that human speak, that way everyone thinks to themselves that Harris has perfected.
Wow. Yeah, I missed that one.
We learned though who he's traveling with, and this is great. He's describing the compatriots. This is Collins describing who he travels with. Jim Eagle is the taller of the 3 and speaks good English. Black Hawk is the quiet one with the piercing eyes, and Warpaint is the mean-looking one that misses nothing with his keen eyes.
His mnemonic device there had me utterly confused. So Jim Eagle, Eagles known for their eyes, and there's Black Hawk, who has piercing eyes, and Warpaint, who misses nothing with his keen eyes.
Yeah. So once you meet these two, if you're trying to, like, if you're at a party and you meet these 3 guys and you're trying to size them up later, you have to, you meet Black Hawk and you're just squinting, looking at him to try to tell if his eyes are piercing or keen. It's slicing it really thin, Collins. For a guy who, as a tracker, is supposed to have great observational skills. Maybe you could give us a bit more information, because you get one that's taller, is the other one. Is one more attractive than the other? We're going to need some more information here.
White man, white eyes, looking into my eyes with weird look. Me pull tomahawk soon if you not stop.
Right. Yeah. If we're doing eye-based descriptions, does one have blue eyes? Maybe one is, has the David Bowie, Max Scherzer thing where eyes are of different colors. Please.
He doesn't even give us the Penthouse Forum version of it. The second one was shorter, but her breasts were just as nice.
So then we encounter. They encounter. We go back to the trappers who are going to meet another tribe of Indians, the Snake, and then Patch says that he speaks a little Snake, and it amused me that he says he's talking to the other Indians in English as we see, but in their language. He says, that's where we're headed for, F-E-R, is to trap beaver down in the Rockies. So I like that his folksy Western speak and misspelled words translate as he's speaking a different language to the Indians.
Yeah, he puts his own spin on their language. It's well done. It's got to be very difficult.
Sure. And then Patch says, why don't you come down off in your high horse, John? If we don't stick together, we may neither one make it out of here alive. Let's pitch camp now, because I don't want to stumble on that soldier patrol, and it's getting dark anyway, Patch suggested, as both men were thinking how to kill each other or get the advantage to do so. So
I wrote down Connor suggested as he was thinking about how to kill Mike.
Yes.
Hey, what time should we record that podcast today? He thought.
Kill you, or just get the advantage to then kill you.
Yes.
You would think that you would hopefully have the advantage as you go to kill someone. Otherwise, it might not go down as well. But they are both either thinking those things.
Right.
And it goes back to the trappers who are tending to the candles, tarp, and the fuzzies. But they start making weapons in case they encounter anything, which, of course, pays off about a page later. Their weapons are things taped to poles, Bowie knives, and fuzzies. So they start just taping stuff to poles so they can wave their knives at things. It seems to me like it would render the Bowie knife a little less useful. You know, having a long pole to wave at something you're going to have a little less leverage than if you're trying to stab something with the knife, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of. I'm impressed by duct tape in general, but I couldn't see how putting it on a long pole. It seems like it'd be tough to get it to stick there. But what do I know? I don't. I've never even worked with a fuzzy, so I'm a tyro here.
Another iteration of when he says the truck is missing and then speaks for another 3 pages. He says, "Chad," Dale yelled, "come quick and bring the Bowie knife." So any normal person would spring into action like, "Oh my God, what's the problem?" But Dale just keeps going. "We have a visitor of some sort. I can't tell what it is, but it's no wolf. It's the wrong color and much too fast. I think it may be a mountain lion or some kind of cat." So he says, "Bring the Bowie knife." Clearly there's emergency. And then he starts parsing. He identifies that it's not a wolf. Like that, he goes on. That's how far he starts parsing this thing. And I think every fan of Birdemic will be delighted by the fact that Dale, I think I hear a mountain lion, almost verbatim.
The tree lover. What is his?
The tree hugger. Yeah, with wearing the wig. Who is that's how he makes the most graceless exit in all of cinema by claiming that he hears a mountain lion and retreats to his treehouse.
Yes, and we get into a battle with the said mountain lion, which is, there's quite a bit of action here. This is the first time I think that he takes a shot at describing action, which is, it could be worse, but I don't know if you have. I don't know if you have this marked down, but coming up after this battle, probably my 2 favorite sentences ever.
Oh, I'm not sure. I have a couple. I didn't write down anything from the battle, but they attack the mountain lion with the Bowie knife on a stick.
This is the 2 sentences that I love so much. "God almighty," Dale said as he turned to throw up. "I've never been as scared in my whole life. Son of a bitch, is it dead?" "I hope so," Chad answered as he took out the knife and began stabbing it repeatedly to ensure its death.
Yep.
One guy's throwing up, the other's cheerfully stabbing it repeatedly to ensure its death.
After he says that he hopes it's dead. Is the 12-year-old boy just watching it in horror?
Yes. Oh, man. Stabbing it repeatedly gets just an aside.
Yes. The bloodlust. He's like licking its blood. It's the first kill, so they have to drink it to ensure its strength will be passed on to them. And
damn, boy, I can't stop. This is feeling pretty good.
And I didn't notice that he had turned to throw up because we get an incredible series of sentences immediately following that.
Oh, yes.
"Thanks, partner. I owe you one. You just saved my life," Dale said as he sat down, shaking and noticeably white as a sheet. So not just white as a sheet. He says, "I know, Chad. It knocked the living daylights out of me. I think I pissed on myself, too." So he's already thrown up, and now he thinks that he might have pissed on himself.
And then his response, no ribbing or anything. He's just like, "Turn around, Dale, and let me see if you're scratched or bitten."
Chad totally ignores it.
Yes.
Yeah, let me see if you're scratched or bitten. Let me see if you're not sure if you've pissed on your pants. Let me see. Oh, yeah, you have. Let's take care of it. He says there's no broken skin, but your coat's ripped in a few places, so it may be a little airish if the wind blows a little hard.
And what did you say just before this? Something.
So yeah, he's already puked. Dale is Dale the larger one?
Yes, 100 pounds.
Okay, so yeah, he's he's served in Nam. He's seen civilians scalded by napalm. He's had his guys, his army mates had their legs blown off. He's wondering if he's ever going to make it home. But this is what really gets him puking and peeing himself.
Right. He's seen guys who've fallen in punji sticks and watched their legs rot away slowly. But
yeah, and who knows? It could have just been Chad's bloodlust getting all the pants peeing caused. Like seeing his partner launch into that repeated stabbing could have been what did it.
Yeah. Hey, extra points for any listeners. What other Riff Tracks movie? It's a favorite of ours and probably not a favorite of fans. Buffalo Rider.
Oh yeah,
a mountain lion attack in there, and he gets all scratched up. And I don't know if he pissed himself. I don't remember.
Right, but I think he did punch it, and it was very much uncertain as to whether this was more than the guy had bargained for when they sort of set this mountain lion on him.
Yeah, it is for sure happening. There are no special effects in. They absolutely kill a raccoon in it, and among other things, I'm pretty sure.
They kill a raccoon and then claim they sure had the adventure of a lifetime as they're pulling an obviously different raccoon out of the water because the first one got swept down a waterfall. It's funnier than it sounds. Another one I thought you were going to talk about at the time, that Leslie Nielsen in Day of the Animals took off his shirt and fights a bear.
Oh, yeah, right.
That's another good one. So check all those out. But we do get a sense, I guess the boy did see this, because when they go back into the cave to check on him, they change his dressing. Slim Fox smiled and made a face like a cat and pawed with his hands. He wanted them to know he had seen the battle with the wildcat. I guess we can't imitate this over the microphone because we can't see each other, but I would love to see what everyone's face like a cat would look like.
Right. Did he do that little cutesy thing where he groomed his ears then?
Oh, God.
He licked his little paws.
Yeah. That has to be it.
But then, I guess the pork and beans are gone, or the peanut butter is gone. So then they go to I guess they consider it their bee food. This is where the good stuff's gone. Salami or beef jerky is all we have left.
You had this all along, you sons of bitches.
Well, I guess it's salami and crackers for a while. They have this artisan cured sausage that they're just tossing
That's what
aside
I had for
to
lunch
spoon
yesterday.
Yeah. Which they say then breakfast didn't take long. I was like, really? The salami and crackers, right. You didn't sit down and dish up, a quarter of a cracker apiece and make little amuse-bouches for each other?
Yeah, toothpicks in each one as a tray-passed appetizer. This was very funny to me. They say, look at him smile. I'm sure he'll feel better in the morning. I think I'll go scratch out a crude map of the area and see if he can point us in the right direction. And this is nuts. So Chad is now an amateur cartographer who's he acknowledges draw a crude map of the area. And then after breakfast, he shows him the crude map and shows it to the boy. And the boy pointed in a manner to show that he wanted to go west. So somehow Chad has managed to, based on the limited area they've surveyed here, conveyed to the boy enough about where they have located it. The boy can show them he wanted to go west.
What could he possibly be drawing that could do that? What are the landmarks? They said there was nothing but hills, and more hills.
Yes.
So he did a 3D mapping of the topography and was able to show which hill he's, what is there that he would be able to show him?
I have no idea, but they have seemed like they've traveled less than a mile, and I've traveled using GPS for navigation, hiking, and you can maybe it's impossible. There's no way he could have come. There's no river or anything. There's no distant lake they're looking at. He just went out there and just drew some triangles to indicate mountains, and the boy was like, "Yep, that way."
So the boy pointed that he wanted to go west, but it could be off by a factor of 180 degrees, 79 degrees. There's no way this crude map is going to do anything.
Yeah, I guess he has a good sense of direction. He rattled off all those roads they were traveling on in the last one, but so yeah, they know that's how they have to go to meet up with the Indians. But so far, the Indian exploratory group has been ambushed by Patch and John. And
this happens all in a tumble here. This is just Boom! It just all comes at once.
So the evil trackers decide they're going to the army is approaching the Indians, and they sort of do the old thing of like Bugs Bunny getting behind one and making it sound like they're both yelling at the other one. So they both fire shots that hit an Indian and an army guy at the same time. Everyone on your toes, he said, as the shots rang out simultaneously, killing a sergeant and Wolfclaw at the same time. So if you were drawing your Wolfclaw fan art, I regret to inform you that he has had another short-lived existence. Pandemonium struck as both forces began firing at one another, the soldiers with their rifles and the Indians with their hatchets and bows. So just like the raping and the killing from the last section, the soldiers they began firing at another, the Indians with their hatchets and bows. So they've got the rarely seen hatchets that are able to fire on the army.
Right, and this incident, I mean, it goes on. The Indians were swift in their attack, were soon celebrating victory over the outnumbered soldiers, circling their ponies, holding the scalps they had taken high above their heads, and chanting war whoops. So is this a historical battle? Because this is all we get of it. This is done.
Right.
I mean, this would be, a full 3 chapters in an American history book or something.
Sure. I mean, it sounds essentially like
a massacre of American soldiers.
Right, especially if it turned out that it was like, both sides were erroneously goaded into attacking.
Right. This is very notable, and it just happens, and then we're done.
Right. Yeah, and neither side was able to. They both were lured in by the two trackers who. Even though that they've both flawlessly executed this massacre through their teamwork, he says, Patch says he kills Starnes essentially. So if you were a big Starnes fan, he's dead too. John Starnes, you ain't going to no Colorado or no place but hell. You plumb forgot who the boss is. Patch said as he wiped the knife on Starnes' shirt. And I wish that Starnes had gotten a chance to die like their buddy did. As Patch is there quipping, he could be, rattling off his list of grievances with Patch as well.
Talking comically through the frothing blood of his slit throat. Yeah, that one had me I just circled that like, good Lord.
Yeah.
Just out of nowhere, he jerked his hair back and slit his throat. These were characters who were talking to each other in folksy manners, for pages, and then... No, he's just dispatched.
Yeah, it's Blood Meridian all of a sudden. Just you can't. The West was brutal, man.
Yeah, oof. But that quickly. So Starnes is gone.
And then we essentially it all goes back to Collins, who is where we started the chapter, and it's looping back to him, and we for whatever reason he meets up with Chad and Dale. And Collins is quite suspicious. But he says, I say we take them back to the fort and let the captain sort out the situation. Hell, they may be in cahoots with the Indians or even Wilson, as far as I know. And then Chad says, well, it was just one of my favorite sentences. I assure you, Collins, we are in cahoots with no one.
And that's the introduction of my name is Chad Hand, and this is my business partner, Dale Rhea.
Yeah, and Collins does not somehow double over in laughter at the name, and the names Chad Hand and Dale Rhea. Yeah, I got stuck with a case of Dale Rhea after, eating cookies, pork and beans, so...
This is where I was sort of confused, though. This is where I was thrown off. So you say that all of the things that we heard before are flashbacks of Collins?
Well, not all these things. I mean, he switches to perspective, but yeah, all the introduction of Lieutenant Tim and General Scollins and or Rollins, whatever. Those were all sort of flashbacks by mean of introducing Collins.
Okay. Oh boy. All right.
Yeah, it was clumsy, but.
And this is when we get also. This is when the restatement of action begins to accelerate. As says Chad says, I think it's Chad because it doesn't say it until the end of the paragraphs of it. He is the one that did the damage to this Indian boy and also tried to rape this child's mother. I overheard him say that the other day. It's probably a good thing he didn't see me. So is this the fifth time this has been described, almost in an identical manner.
Yes, because we heard it. We overheard. We met the abused boy. We overheard the villains talking about it. Chad related that to Dale. Chad and Dale now related to Collins.
Right.
And I guess the medicine man sort of related it to them as well from his vision.
Yes.
So not exaggeration. The fourth time we have heard this described.
Yeah.
So that was great. I loved that they just immediately disrespect Collins. We don't know anything about him, but they are not tolerating they're taking no guff for him. They say, if you want to play God, Collins, do it with your own life, not with an innocent child that's been abused by a damned outlaw like Patch Collins. And then they even start playing his own team against him. They say, Jim Eagle, are you on the side of common decency, or are you going to listen to Collins play hero? And Collins just has to be like, I'm wearing the uniform of the United States Army. Like, what more do you want from me? Like,
right.
I've come out here to tame the wilderness. Like, lay off.
Right. In this little exchange, I have a challenge for you. The way that he stated something made me laugh. So here's my challenge. I'll read the thing first. This is Jim Eagle. He's going to talk to the boy and find out why he was left for you to find in a cave. Collins said in a way they knew he didn't believe their story. So I challenge you to read that in a way that lets me know you don't believe my story.
Give it to me again.
This is Jim Eagle. He's going to talk to the boy and find out why he was left for you to find in a cave.
Okay. Well, this is Jim Eagle. He's going to talk to the boy and find out why he was left in the cave. But I was making the J-O motion with my hand the whole time to indicate, and rolling my eyes. So that was need some visual stuff there.
Also in the funny, you just read this. I assure you, Collins, we're in cahoots with no one. It's exactly as Mr. Jim Eagle told you. I wanted Jim Eagle to break in and go, please, my father was Mr. Jim Eagle. I'm just Jimbo.
Yes, just more going over his head and just disrespecting him and respecting his subordinates right away.
Yes.
My favorite part of this exchange was they tell the story of finding the boy and all that stuff, but Chad, off the top of his head, comes up with this amazing lie of the cover story of what they're there because so he says, my name is Chad Hand, and this is my business partner and best friend, Dale Rhea. We are from Georgia, but traveled by train to Chicago, where we joined a wagon train headed to California, but it stopped in North Platte, Nebraska for the winter. We bought horses and started out alone because we were supposed to be in San Francisco by late spring to join up with Dale's brother to assist him in the surveying business. We are both surveyors. So, he essentially has become Kaiser Soze here. He's sitting there just like crafting this huge lie off the top of his head with all these moving parts. Dale must be sitting there just being like, God, what if they ask me questions about this? I can't keep track of this web of lies you just invented.
Right, man. We should have thought of this in advance if you're going to do this big switch up on me.
But this reminded me of something. This turn, this Kaiser Soze-esque narrative, and so for the second time, I didn't turn to the dark web.
What?
Just turn to the regular web, because there was something we had done probably like 7 years ago. Because the Kaiser Soze thing was always something that I was like, this premise just seems a touch flawed to me. So I tracked down a sketch we had recorded years ago. I don't know why we did it or what, but we had posted it to a SoundCloud or something. So not a dark web sketch, but this was just I assume no one heard it in the first place. So we can put it in here based on the Kaiser Soze / Chad Hand premise of making up your backstory off the top of your head.
And you didn't enlist the 372 players for this? You just used our old version of it?
I am not a fan of those guys, especially after I learned a bit of their backstory in that last dark web sketch. If you want to employ those guys, I guess that's on you. But made my feelings known. I feel betrayed and humiliated.
All right. Well, let's just stick with this one then.
Okay.
Kaiser Soze, the most feared villain in the history of organized crime, threatens to lose everything when the police call him in for questioning. Join us now as we listen into a meeting of Kaiser Soze and his lawyer Gary, just a few hours before he's scheduled to be interrogated by, Chaz Palminteri, or is it Joe Mantegna?
Come in, Gary.
Kaiser Soze, thank you for taking this meeting. Sir, you are the most sinister, diabolical criminal mastermind that ever lived, but this interrogation could topple your entire empire and put you behind bars for the rest of your life.
It is quite a pickle.
Yes, which is why I put together a bulletproof alibi. Crafted down to the smallest detail, just memorize a few key points, and there's no way those cops will be able to...
I'm afraid there's no need, Gary. I've already got a plan.
You do?
Yeah. I'm going to go into the interview, and when they ask me questions, I'll just sort of make some stuff up.
What's that now?
I'm going to the police station completely unprepared, and then I'm going to kind of look around the room that I'm sitting in with a cop and make up some intricate web of lies on the spot. You know, based on the crap the cop has lying around his office.
Sir, that seems wildly irresponsible and, frankly, completely out of character. After all, you built this worldwide crime syndicate over decades of meticulous planning and ruthless efficiency. Why would you not prepare ahead of time?
All right, so let's say he's got a picture of the time he went deep-sea fishing on the wall. All right? I'll tell him I think the guy in charge was named Jimmy the Fish.
Right. Or you could just plan on telling him that in case there's not a picture and you panic when there's not and he picks up on that and knows you're making everything up.
Or say he's got a Ziggy page-a-day calendar. All right? Then I tell him that we got all our drugs from a guy named Ziggy.
I just don't see this working. There's so many variables.
Don't think I haven't considered that. It doesn't have to be a page-a-day Ziggy calendar. It could be a Ziggy monthly wall calendar. Perhaps it's a little Ziggy paperweight.
Is this just about you saying the word Ziggy?
I'm going to invent my whole story on the fly.
I've already prepared a story for you.
If he's got a mugshot on the wall about a criminal on the loose in Ecuador, I'll say my college roommate studied abroad in Ecuador.
This took countless man-hours.
If there's a picture of a fat guy hanging up, I'll say that I, too, have also met a fat guy.
Sir, you're essentially describing improv comedy. It's very difficult, even after years of practice.
I'll look at the bottom of his, hopefully, Ziggy coffee mug every time he drinks, and whatever it says on the bottom, I'll say that's the name of my right-hand man. Huh?
Okay, if you're going to pursue this endeavor against the advice of me, your trusted attorney, perhaps you'll at least practice once or twice with me before the actual interrogation.
I thought you'd never ask, Gary.
So when the cop asks you, what's the name of your lawyer? What are you going to tell him?
Gary.
No, you're not going to tell him that because that's my real name and we'll all go to prison.
Aha! But see, that's just because you're standing right here and I use that to craft my backstory. In the real interrogation, you won't be there. So I will look around the room and think of something else on the spot.
Well, if it's going to be that easy, think of something else on the spot right now. Kaiser, what is the name of your lawyer?
Barry.
They'll see right through that. You just picked a name that rhymes with my name.
Larry.
You did it again.
Harry.
Barry, Larry, and Harry? You're covering the tracks of countless murders and billions of dollars of drug money, not trying to remember the names of Donald Duck's nephews.
This is harder than it looks.
I know.
I, too, know a fat guy?
Okay, what if they interrogate you in an interrogation room and not the cop's office? You know, like they do in every single other movie. Bare walls, desk, one light bulb, no bulletin board, no flyers taped up.
Yeah. You know what? I hadn't thought of that.
Sir, what are you doing?
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
Sir, you're not pulling a trick. You just hid under your desk.
Like that. He's gone.
We all quit. Enjoy prison.
Can you bring me today's Ziggy?
So yeah, it's hard for even the most brilliant of criminal minds to stick to that sort of story. I am not sure that Chad Hand is going to be able to pull it off.
Right. Boy, the dialogue in here is just so it begins to get just amazing, and some of it sounds like court deposition.
Yes.
Chad ran into the two men the first day we found the boy who were bragging about beating the boy and trying to rape his mother. He said his name was Patch Wilson. It's just it's court deposition.
Yeah, it is. Read that back to me.
Yes, state only the facts. I want none of your opinion in this.
Right, and for the reader to be reading it for the fourth time, if there was any sort of weird Rashomani interpretation or unreliable narrator, that could make it sort of interesting. But no, it's just really just a Cliff Notes version of something we've already heard.
And it's coming up again when we meet the glorious Dr. Flat.
Dr. Flat. That's who I was thinking of earlier when we I thought he was the preacher, but he's another guy. He's got a wife in Pittsburgh, I think. So they find the first that making up a story off the top of their head might prove tricky because Dr. Flat is immediately curious about back east. He's been wanting to write to his wife, bring her back out there, and so he wants to have them over for dinner so he can get word about how things are. And both of the guys are sort of tugging on their collar and trying to beg off of this because they're not going to be able to cut it.
Yeah, this is where I lose the. Okay, so Jim, who's Jim Eagle? Sorry,
Jim is the guy who is taller than the other guys.
Okay, so he's the one who's going to translate to the boy.
He speaks English, and I don't know if he's part of that tribe or not. But yeah, they bring the boy. Dr. Flat is clearly coming to examine him.
All right, and Jim Eagle is the one who nicknames Chad and Dale. So we now have nicknames for Chad and Dale.
Yes, I have those right here.
Big Bear and Fast Cat.
Yeah, he really dug deep for those.
Well, they're the same tribe that calls him Bad Eye. So
yes.
For Patch, so they don't have a lot of improvisational skills.
But yeah, so as he's translating, Dr. Flat comes up with some amazing medical talk. I've not seen such a neat job of bandaging before. Are either of you of the medical profession? Captain, the boy's wounds have been catheterized by an entirely new process, something I've never seen. The wounds are practically healed, and I can tell that some of the wounds were very deep and had some infection, which has disappeared. So I guess it would be an entirely new process for them to catheterize his wounds.
They said nothing about that.
Rather than cauterizing.
And when challenged with this, they think quickly. And they say, the procedure we used on the wounds was as basic as I have said.
Yes.
They are making great discoveries back east in the medical field, and everyone is being afforded the opportunity that desires to learn. Chad and I have received the training and found it has come in handy several times. We only did for the boy what we were taught.
Yes.
To which the doctor, like, okay, settle down, man. Don't just go pop off on me like that.
Right. And so Dale is not exactly Kaiser Soze there. He just is like, oh yeah, like we've learned crazy medical techniques. Chad is doing like the throat cut, like, Dale, no, you're in way over your head. No. We're not going to be able to replicate any of this.
Keep the lie as simple as I kept it when I talked about train stops and
Right. Yeah, exactly. A medicine man from another tribe came by and did this. Like, that's much more believable.
I was reading something about, as an employer, when you want to find out if someone is lying about, something, then when they come in and there's just too much detail to their, I started to go, and then you wouldn't believe it. Like, I knocked over an iron and like it was hot. And so it's like people who are actually just late, they come in and they slam their briefcase down and go, I don't want to talk about it. I got, it's not important. But when you're lying, it's like you just keep larding up on details.
Right, and as we all know from watching westerns and the cliche of the Wild West pioneer type is the strong verbose type. That's something that we've all been learned to. They just keep talking once they start, and you can't shut up an old Western guy.
He's tall and slim, and he's incredibly loquacious. You can't get that guy to shut up.
But so that question of, oh yeah, they've made advances in medicine since you've left that are practically magic. Apparently Dale had satisfied him with the answers. He had? All right, good. So the one doctor out here is a complete idiot.
Well, it gets what I think is going to be a sitcom setup with Dr. Flat. He says, as soon as you get to the fort, I want to discuss the new medical procedures with the two of you and catch up on the news and happenings back east. My wife is from Chicago and will have many questions.
Yeah.
The wife, like, well, I'm from Chicago. Did you live on Rush Street?
Yes.
Rush Street. Yes. Yeah. No. I mean, yes.
Well, you must have known the Thompson family then.
Yeah. No. I mean, yes. Oh, you mean the Thompsons? Oh, I thought you said Thompson.
It's Seymour Skinner and the steamed hams all over again.
Yes.
But Collins remains deeply suspicious throughout the whole thing. it says he had to think fast in order. No, I don't remember what Collins was suspicious of, but he was still. He's shooting them hard gazes the entire time. He's just sort of narrowing his eyes at them for absolutely no reason. And a reader wrote in, speaking of Riff Tracks titles, Dawn said, it reminds me of when Mike, channeling Sheriff Roy in Mutant, says to Wings Hauser, the last thing I need around here is responsible strangers reporting potential crimes. So these guys have just shown up and, they've saved a boy, they've healed him, but Collins is just giving them hard glares as he rides away the entire time.
Yes. And Jim, I don't have many more notes, but Jim Eagle's final paragraphs. Do you have more notes?
I might have. No, I don't. I have one thing I marked as a dumb sentence, which is probably Jim Eagle's final thoughts.
Yeah, I won't read it, but it is.
Go ahead. I've got one more.
It goes on forever and ever and ever. It's just like an amazing monologue to close the chapter. It's just so funny. But yeah, the captain tells him to rig the boy up. He takes horses from his troops, and they rig up the travois again.
Yes,
and they're off. And so that's where we are.
Okay. Yeah, so it's we're heading off, I guess, back to the Indian village, but Patch is still out there, and I guess there's other Indians who have been goaded into violence, or I guess the army, which Collins is a part of, is probably upset with the Indians, so that's going to happen because of the other massacre that Patch initiated. We've got people who look like each other, people from other periods of time, and we've got some burgeoning romance, I guess, based on that fan fiction we heard.
Who do you think that's going to be?
It's going to be gray squirrel. It's just going to be some other Indian woman that we've met that's not. Or I guess I don't know. Maybe it could be Dr. Flint's wife.
Huh? Is it going to be like a Hope and Crosby movie, and they're like, "You marry my daughter," and then the tent flap opens, and one guy's got a hottie, and the other one's 300 pounds and going, "Yoo-hoo!"
Right? Who are both, other than that, the exact same person and agree with each other about everything.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think that we can move on to some dumb sentences for this section.
A sentence begins with a capital letter. A capital letter is a letter that's big. A capital letter is not a small letter. A capital letter is big, big, big. A sentence ends with a period or an exclamation.
All right, dumb sentence of the week. Let's get it going.
Right. Well, it goes without saying that many people, Heather and Billy, also Brian, and also Joe submitted. It all adds up to a bad day for the home team, and we just happen to be the visiting team that's trailing. So the folksy bot 10,000 stood out to a lot of people, not just the dark web people. We have Dawn, who said, Chad and Dale looked at one another and had a hard time not to laugh at the pedestal the doctor had placed him upon. Which is pretty good. They're trying not to laugh at the imaginary pedestal that they're imagining. Amber, this is translating from the Slim Fox. He said he was worried about his mother, and that should be enough for any mother's son to return. Not one you can diagram, so don't even try. Adam says Chad had climbed every hill in the immediate area and found nothing but hills, and more hills. Janelle says, you and I are here for whatever reason, and it now becomes very serious for our survival. And then Kelly has, she says, when Chad was talking with Collins about how the army was searching for Patch Wilson, Chad said, it's probably a good thing he didn't see me, or I may have been whipped too. And she just is not sure why the ex-Marine black belt who just killed a panther would be worried about Patch Wilson whipping him, but because Chad isn't the one who peed his pants and vomited. So
that's true.
And let's see what is yours. I got to find mine.
Mine is Chad nor Dale had actually seen a wolf. Figure that one out. Chad nor Dale had actually seen a wolf.
So Chad had actually seen a wolf is the way that works. If you, God, it's like a negative. It's an imaginary number. He multiplied by a negative number midway through the sentence.
Yes, it's negative time. It's something you can't imagine. Chad nor Dale had actually seen a wolf. There you go.
God, that's sloppy. I got this one. I think it was either the doctor or Jim Eagle said, "In my honest and professional opinion, I find the two of you knowledgeable and resourceful and enterprising, and I think you are being naive about it." So, all right, he's laying it all out there. Like, settle down, man. Like, you just met them, and they're obviously lying to you. So,
their eyes darting around, and I guess they would be expert on eyes. Is he keen or piercing?
Yeah, which sure about
his?
That one. Yeah, shifty in this case, I think, these two. But yeah, both honest and professional. He finds them 3 different things. And also, in his honest and professional opinion, he thinks they're being naive about it. So packs a lot into that one sentence. And we can also read some emails. We got some good emails from people. So yes, people have sent us emails about various things about this book. A lot of those people were Patreon supporters, who we truly appreciate. Good stuff happens on our Patreon every week. They get every episode early. We sent off our copies of The Mister to people who just received them, so that has reduced their property value by probably 10% or so since it arrived. I think we'll maybe we'll wait one more week just to build some more stuff from this book, but we'll do a meme contest. We learned that you're not allowed to do actual raffles on Patreon, so the meme contest will not have a cash reward for anyone who wants to enter that. So please join at patreon.com/372 pages. We will see when we hit the 400 subscriber mark that we've been talking about for, I think, 4 separate episodes. Maybe we need to come up with an incentive for once we hit that. Like we'll watch something and commentate on it again.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
We'll think of that. I posted an image of someone doing the Alicia one eye popping open as they wake up. That's coming from the riff tracks we're currently working on. So there you go. You can see that how that looks in real life.
Yeah. Was that Frankie Avalon himself doing that?
No, I think that was his.
That other. There's like 3 guys in this movie who look pretty much identical.
Almost identical. Yeah. That's the one who's like just we're supposed to accept as the hero of the movie because he's slightly above average height, not particularly hideous, and just a generic white guy from the 60s. So,
and if his name is Steve and he's a white guy, yeah, he's just in charge of everything.
Yeah, everyone just assumes that. So, not a good movie, but they do have a character who pops one eye open to wake up. So yeah, patreon.com/372 pages. Thank you to everyone who supports it. The first email comes from Heather. She just remarks, Chad Hand. What kind of a name is that for a protagonist? She says, is this a requirement for 372 pages books? And then lists Wade Watts, Zach Lightman, Jake, short for Jonathan from Tech War, which I had forgotten about.
Right.
Jake, short for Jonathan Cardigan, Bob Honey, Maximilian Trevelyan, and then she says Grigner might, in fact, be the least stupid name we've ever had, which is amazing.
True.
Yes. Justin writes in with a quick note about truckers. His dad is a dispatcher for most of his life. The reason Chad and Dale work as a team is explained perhaps not very well in the first chapter. There are safety restrictions regulating how many hours a driver can spend on the road. When they hit that limit, they have to pull off and rest for a certain number of hours before they can drive again. If you drive with a partner, the restrictions are not as limiting since you can switch off driving and sleeping. That means you can get to California and back with a good chunk of your weekend left to spend with your Miss Marie. Also, the Qualcomm monitors the truck's location and time spent on the road. It allows the truckers and dispatchers to communicate while the load is being delivered. It's just basically a satellite community, basically a satellite computer. I can ask my dad if the 372 community comes up with any questions while we're reading this book. So we've got an in. We've got an in with a truck dispatcher who can verify any of this trucker nonsense throughout the rest of the book. If there's even any more trucking. Well, I worried we might have trucked through time, and that might be it.
What's the fella's name?
That's Justin.
Justin, I would like a couple paragraphs on fuzzies.
Sure.
And bungee straps. Is there a nickname for them, or are they bungee straps? Is he right on this one?
Yes. All right. So reach out, all you truckers and truck dispatchers. I'm glad we've got an in. He says this book is truly magical. Thank you guys for sharing it with us. Next email's from Brian. Chad and Dale's frequent exclamations of "damn it, boy" have become my favorite part of the book. It's quite the versatile phrase. Here are the emotions behind each usage so far. So we've got 10 of them. 1, confusion. Damn it, boy, I don't know where to put all this loot. 2, satisfaction. Damn it, boy, I slept like a log. 3, excitement. Damn it, boy, I sure like these, referring to binoculars. 4, insecurity. Damn it, boy, you and I are the only ones in here without cowboy hats. Agitation. Damn it, boy, he said as he hit the ground running for the lobby. And that's, I guess, because he's stepping into heavy wind. Annoyance. Damn it, boy, I still have 0800 hours. Sarcastic. Damn it, boy, you're too kind, after he says, I don't want to chance your big ass falling on me. We skipped over the I'll shoot your ass off threat that Patch issued. I like that one. We forgot to mention that.
I missed that one too, yeah.
Number 8, Fear. Damn it, boy, they're all around the camp, referring to wolf tracks. 9, Surprise. Damn it, boy, you sure heal fast. And then finally, Agreement. Damn it, boy, you tell him, Dale said. So yeah, it's like the old cliche about Eskimo words for snow. They've got a damn it, boy fits in for every emotion.
That's incredible. Is it all from one? Is it one character or the other? Or do they both?
No, they use them back and forth.
Okay.
I
was going to say maybe that's the tell of that they're a different person or something, but no.
Nope. Well, because in that thing you thought was fanfic, they say "damn it, boy" before Collins attacks him, and then right after they karate kick him, they each say it.
My sentence that I just want to throw this out there is a possible meme of replacing this "I hope so" in this sentence with something else. I hope so, Chad answered as he took out the knife and began stabbing it repeatedly to ensure its death. That's a sentence that I think could be modified in funny ways. So that's a challenge.
Yes, absolutely. Read it one more time.
I hope so, Chad answered as he took out the knife and began stabbing it repeatedly to ensure its death.
Sure. Serve up your favorite classics from literature with that tacked onto it, please. Final email is from Ben, who's a Patreon supporter. He writes in with some font information. So this is going to keep everyone riveted till the end of the podcast. He says, when an author writes about the font they're using, we discussed that last time, a note on the typeface.
Yeah.
This is known as a colophon. It's only commonly used in older books that were hand set in type, or whenever the author wants to look like a type aficionado by tipping his hat to the font designer. Also, here we go with the actually. This book doesn't have a kerning problem, as you claimed last time. Kerning is the spacing. Kerning is the spacing between individual letters in a word, commonly adjusted one word at a time, as with logos or signs. What this guy has is a paragraph alignment issue. I can hear people pressing the end podcast button right away. Instead of I got the Patreon patch in right at the right time. Instead of the lines being set to left aligned, like most books, Harris has set his to justified. All lines in a paragraph are expanded so they butt up against both the left and right text margins. Space is added between words and characters as necessary to fill out the line. In some typesetting references, justified text is also referred to as full justified. This kind of alignment only looks good if the font is small and the paragraph body is wide. I suspect he kept it bigger to pad out the number of pages the book would fill.
Wow, did we stumble on it with kerning? Well, I did. I brought it up. It's all on me. It's all on me.
So yeah, that's unbeknownst, we've got some we've through his own fault. Charles E. Harris has raised the ire of the kerning community, font community, trucking community, Native American community. It's one big trap he stepped in here.
But the kerning is my mistake, said Mike as he thought about a way to kill Connor.
Kill or get the upper hand on killing. Once you've decided to debate, pondering how to get the upper hand to kill someone, it's really, you've gone down a path few of us have ever ventured down.
Yeah, I got the upper hand to kill him, and then I just didn't fall. I just kind of lost steam at that point, so I didn't kill him.
You're above the cliff. I'm pecking at the free bird. So you have the TNT ready to detonate, but you've opted not to do it. You're only thinking about how to get to that point.
I got one eye popped open looking at those Franken beans, and so I'm heading back to camp.
So nourishing. All right, for next time, we're going to read through Chapter 10. That's page 174 in the print edition. We will see what happens. Will there be romance? Will there be more characters introduced and killed? Will we get more nicknames for Mad Eye? Will we get Chad and Dale disagreeing with each other? All the canvas is blank. Anything could happen.
Will Collins and Rollins ride out together once again? I don't know. I have no predictions for it. This is madness. So
yes, I love it.
I love it too. All right. Well, we'll be back with another episode of 372 Pages. We'll never get back. I'm Michael J. Nelson.
I am Michael J. Collins. I don't know. I'm glaring at you with a hard glare as you all depart.
So long.